Hey guys, what's going on? It's Simon and James here, and welcome back to the Friday fan mail. So last week we restarted this series, and we said that the reason why we're taking a short break was just because we weren't getting enough quality questions for you guys in the comments. And last week you guys responded. We've managed to get a good few, and hopefully this week you guys can do the same. So make sure if you want to get a question or a topic discussed, then post it in that comment section below. So James, what's the first question we've got to discuss this week?
So the first question is to do with capes in RuneScape. So the question that was initially asked was, Simon and James, do you guys think that skill capes might be a little overpowered at the moment? In the current game, someone can go and train cooking to 99 and get a cape with 230 armor and 2% crit to all styles, while someone else can go and get the kiln cape, do the fight kiln, and get a cape with a disappointing 56 armor and 2.4% crit to just melee, even though you use magic range and melee to do the fight kiln itself.
I think that last line is a very very good point, isn't it? The way that to do the fight kiln, the whole point of the fight kiln, especially even before the EOC, the fight kiln was very much forcing you to use the combat triangle in all its aspects. You had to use your obviously.
You didn't have to,
Well,
but
you didn't have to, but it
I
reduced
think
the damage by
damage was
50%.
reduced. Yeah, so damage was halved if you used the wrong
It
style
was
on a certain
significantly
creature.
reduced. So it was like massively beneficial to go ahead and use the different combat styles, and that was kind of cool. It was something I hadn't really seen before in RS, apart from maybe like stuff like DKs and that. So obviously in that format, that was really unique. And it was at the time obviously still just a cape pretty much for melee only because it gave strength bonus, which didn't benefit ranged or magic. So I think it's not surprising that it now only still benefits melee because it only benefited melee before. Do I think that's the right thing? Personally, I'd say probably not. I think it should benefit all if you need all to get it. But I don't know how they'd work that in, because obviously it is indeed just a cape. But then obviously skill capes, as we can see, give a critical percentage chance to everything. The weirdest thing on that one, though, I have to say, is the armor. So for a cape to provide only 56 armor when a skill cape provides 230 seems a little bit extreme, because if you consider the fact that a skill cape appears to be made out of like cloth and fabric, and then you've got this like literally a cape that's made of like armored shards that you get from the fight kiln. You'd think it'd be slightly better just in terms of actually what it's made of, and the fact that you have to kill some of the highest level things in the game to get it, or the most difficult. You would have thought you'd have a very good defensive cape compared to, as someone said, just getting 99 cooking. So definitely, I think the armor's just too low. I think the critical percentage, although 2.4 is good, I think it should be not necessarily. I don't know. It could be applied to all, but then that would make it more powerful than a max cape. So then it's like, well, hold on a minute. That would be a bit ridiculous. I don't know. It's a very hard one to balance, I think. What do you think then, James?
So I think rather than the kiln cape being buffed, maybe apply it to all with a lower defense, but lower the defense of the skill cape. I think an even better solution would be to increase the defense on your skill cape up to the defense of a max cape, depending on how many skills at level 99 you have.
Right, so it's like a scaling thing. That's
Yeah,
quite
so you
interesting.
get 99 cooking and you get a cape with 20 defense. Get another one, 40 defense, all the way up to the point where you have one increment lower than a max cape.
I'd,
I think that would
yeah,
work well.
I
I think
quite
that'd be
like
pretty
that.
cool.
That's quite a cool
So,
idea.
however, under the same topic, I wanted to mention the quest cape. Now, at the minute, I believe the quest cape requires somewhere around 20 plus million experience to obtain, because you need things like 80 smithing for some quests, the 82 mining for some quests. There's some high requirements in there for a quest cape. Now, this cape gives absolutely terrible stats in comparison to a skill cape and is easily one of the hardest capes to get. It's also released with the skill capes and has exactly the same style as a skill cape, so I believe that to be a complete fail on Jagex's part as well. The quest cape should at least have the same stats as a skill cape, and
It's a good
currently it
point.
doesn't.
Like, I never really thought, obviously, when I used to see the quest cape, especially when there was a lot fewer quests and they were a lot easier in terms of requirements, it used to be like the noob skill cape. A lot of people would have it, but they wouldn't have any 99s. But then, if you consider, as you said, the fact that to get all of these requirements, because there's like obviously more skills now, and the fact that more quests,
There's more
yeah,
grandmaster quests in the game.
more quests are requiring higher requirements, it just means that yeah, you actually need a hell of a lot of total experience to be able to get that cape. So I think, yeah, I think it should at least be held in the same regard as a skill cape in terms of the same stats. Whether the stats are OP, I think the skill capes are a bit OP at the minute. I like the fact that they've got good stats. I'd love to see them being used. I like the fact that people are like encouraged to use them. I'd personally like to see them being used, like I don't know, in relation to the skill that they're in. So, if someone's got a herblore cape, I don't necessarily think it should be the best combat cape, but I think it should have some kind of passive benefit to Herblore. I know that you can, I don't know whether you still can, operate it to get a +1 boost. That's kind of pointless in a lot of skills. But I always like
In
the
all
fact,
skills.
yeah, I'd always like the fact that maybe you can go ahead and if you got a Slayer cape, for example, you'd have a slight advantage when training Slayer. People may think, oh, well, that just means that people that are already 99 Slayer have a better chance to get 200 million. It's like, well, yeah, but it doesn't really matter. No one's really going for 200 million on on a whim. It's something people do as a long-term goal. I think the capes should be better and should be skill specific, but that's just my feeling. But in terms of whether the capes are overpowered at the minute, I think it's good that they have good stats because then we actually see them again. They were pretty useless before. But yeah, I think the main thing here is the fact that stuff like the Tok'ra Cow with 56 armor is just it's not enough. It looks like a pretty tanky cape. It should be, unless it's trying to make the point that it's because it's got the highest critical percentage from melee or tied critical high. Then maybe they're trying to balance that out in terms of lowering its armor. I don't know. It's all very weird. But I think yeah, the point you're making about the quest cape is a very good one. I think that probably should now be brought up to the same level. And then maybe just as a final point, the capes of accomplishment, you know, the ones where you have to get like level
Yeah,
10 in all,
they're fairly useless right
they're
now.
all terrible. I think they're all the same stats as well. And you were saying like how skill capes could scale of how many 99s you've got. Maybe that would be quite hard to do, but I think it'd be quite cool if, say for example, the level 90 in all skills cape was 90% of the stats of a max cape, and so it worked up like that, and 80% for all
Yeah, no, I
80s
like that as well. I like
because
that.
then it wouldn't be the most powerful cape in the game at like level 70. But when you get into like level 90, when I got that blue cape, I thought it was awesome. Like it's really hard to get level 90 in all skills. That was a good achievement for me. And the fact that the cape obviously had no stats was pretty depressing. So I'd rather show that off than a single skill cape because it's pretty obvious you're going to have 99s if you've got 90 skills in everything. I think there'd be a very small number of people in the game that have 90 plus in everything, but no 99s. So I don't know. I'd personally like to see that one worked in for better stats, but I'm sure in time, hopefully, there'll be a stat rebalance. Obviously, there's not everything in the game that's perfect at the minute, so hopefully they can change it in the future. I don't know. But James, have we got another question? Or
Yeah,
would you like
so
to
on to the
add
next
something else on that?
question. The next question is to do with the Grand Exchange, and it says basically, so long now after its release, looking back on it, do you think it's a good or a bad thing? Update. Do you think it's a good or a bad update?
So I
And
think
like,
like
and then initially, I'm sorry, I'll just quickly say my
yeah.
thing. Initially, when it came out, if you played before the Grand Exchange and you had 60 Dragon Daggers in your bank and you had to go to World 2 and try and flog them just west of the Falador East Bank, is that right? Um,
I
no, hang
think
on.
well,
Yeah,
it's in the Falador Park mainly, or just yeah, just north of the bank
just outside the
near
park,
it.
next to the bank. But you'd always try and sell all your glories, your Dragon Daggers, and it was so frustrating, especially if you did something like Slayer and you had to go and sell the loot. And then when the Grand Exchange came back, it was like, oh yes, I can just flog it on the GA.
Yeah.
Problem solved. And it was a massive convenience update. But do I think that's taken away from some of the trade and player interaction in the game? Yeah, probably. But do I think it's a bad update? I don't really know. I'd say probably not. You know, the convenience is just
I think
huge.
I think it was needed at the time, considering how many more just regular items there are in the game now compared to what there were. Like even just pieces of armor and gear, and think about how often, like before, people didn't really have a lot of stuff. Like now, everyone really is doing Slayer. It was a fairly still well, it wasn't a new skill, but it hadn't been around for too long before the G came out. It's only a couple of years, and so like the fact that say like every player now is doing things like Slayer, getting all these random loots, it'd just be too much effort to go ahead and sell them. Like if you've got four grimy, I don't know, Harrowlanders, you're not gonna like go ahead and sell them because it's just not worth your time.
Do you remember when
Um,
everyone used to sell units?
oh yeah, unidentified herbs.
Unidentified herbs.
That was way
Selling
back
you
in the day.
like buying all units. 1k
Yeah,
each. I don't
but
know.
that's the thing.
I kind of miss those times. It was fun going to World 2 trying to snap up a bargain. It was
Absolutely.
annoying when you'd want to buy a Berserker ring and you'd sell it for like 2.3 mil and there's already people there selling it for 2.4 and someone would offer you 2290 and you're like, really?
Yeah, people would be very tight. I was one of those people. I have to say, I was always trying to get the best deal I could. And I don't know, it has taken away from player interaction.
I
That is for
think it
sure.
also helped kill off the forums as a huge amount.
Yeah, because that's the thing. There used to be like, it sounds ridiculous to say, but there used to be literally shops. Like if someone was going for 99 Herblore, they would have a post saying like, "Hey, I'm going for 99 Herblore, buying all," and then they'd say like, I don't know, Cadentines for like 1.1k each, but I'll be buying Qualms for 2.3k each, and it'd have his like price list, and he'd just be like, "I'm herbloring in this spot in this world. Come and trade me if you've got any herbs," and it'd have a calculator up, and it'd just instantly work it out. It was still a quick way to sell your stuff. There was always people like that. There's always quick ways to sell the stuff. Um, but obviously you have to do that for everything. Obviously the G makes it a lot faster and streamlines the process. But then it takes away from a certain aspect of the game, which I quite liked. I'm sure other people did. I don't know. It's an interesting one. I think,
Let us
yeah.
know. Let us know in the comments, as well as some interesting topics you'd like us to answer. Let us know what you think about the Grand Exchange,
And then,
good or
yeah,
bad.
I'd love to see some comments from people that have only started playing RS since. Obviously, the only RS you know is RS with the Grand Exchange. You've never been in like playing without it, and I'd love to know what you would think if there wasn't a Grand Exchange. Actually, having to trade with players, would that be just way too annoying, or do you reckon it'd be kind of fun to go out, try and find bargains if you got to buy something, or like obviously try and sell for a good profit if you're trying to sell something? Obviously, it makes it really good for people that want to do sort of merchanting as well. That makes it kind of fun, but because it's definitely more fun than just standing at the G and waiting for offers to complete. That's for sure.
Yeah, I remember
Which the
doing
merchants of
merching back in
today
the day
do.
with ores and bars and World 1 as free to play,
Yep.
and then I became a member and I could post on the forums, and I was like, this is the best thing ever. I could sell them, and it was awesome. I really enjoyed
It
that.
was really good fun.
So regardless,
Anyway,
the final question is a fairly quick one, so it won't take us too long. But question. Items like the Abyssal Whip, Staff of Light, Dark Bows, Whipvines, Dragon Boots, and to an extent Barrows have next to no value anymore. Many, like maybe too many items are coming into the game, and since you lose nothing on death now, things only get worse. It seems that 99 Slayer has no benefit anymore, and then that's kind of the whole question.
yeah.
Me and Simon have been over this many a time about how the game needs an item sink. It benefited massively and kept prices high for two reasons. One, there was inflation, but two, there was also a huge loss of items due to the player versus player worlds when there was no free trade, mainly because people kill people in full bandos and receive trout. Bad for the PKers, but then also loads of people would stand around EPing and receive statues worth 5 mil apiece. And so there's a huge influx of money, which caused inflation. Items rose in price, but also items left the game. And at the minute, no items leave the game, or next to none, like literally nothing. So
Yeah, I think it's a very relative thing. You have to reflect on the fact that when an Abyssal Whip was released, it was the best item in the game. It was the best main hand weapon in the game. Currently, it's nowhere near. So that, like, yeah, there are a lot of them in the game. There's too many of them in the game. But having no value isn't always down to the fact that there's too many in the game. It's also to the fact that it's actually not very good for some things. So you're not using it on an average Slayer task anymore. People are using chaotic weapons, or they're using like the level 75 Zara swords and Zami spears now. So they're not the best weapons in the game, and that is something to reflect on. Dark bows are now terrible. They were pretty bad before, but without the spec, they're basically junk. Whip vines, again, they don't really improve the whip that much. Staff of Light, still a very cheap alternative for a mage staff. People use it, but I think
you got the
because
polypore, just so he's
the rate at which they come into the game, because you need 93 Slayer to find someone that's 93 Slayer that doesn't have a Staff of Light, or doesn't have the cash to buy a Staff of Light. And then if you're using a Staff of Light to kill Ice Strike Worms and you get another one, you're probably going to sell it. So it kind of floods the market. It's always going to happen. Like, think about it. You get the Corporeal Beast. The drop rate, that's the first real boss we've ever seen where the drop rate is extremely rare. So they were extremely hard to get, all the Spirit Shields. Obviously some more than others. But they kept a very high value for a very long time. It wasn't just because they were rare, it's because they were still desirable. They were the best shields in the game, and they were still desirable. They still sort of are today to some extent. And so that's why they keep a reasonable value. Obviously they've crashed a lot. But the fact that there is no item sync obviously doesn't help. We need a way just to get some of the things out of the game.
So Simon, do you think the game's too safe right now? So here, from Jagex's point of view, imagine I am a noob and I've worked fairly hard to get some items and I'm at fairly low level and I die, okay? And I lose my goods. They go on the floor and I lost them. When people used to die, the goods would just drop on the floor, just straight up. That's how it worked in like old school escape. The shit would just go straight on the floor and other people would take it.
Yeah.
If I'm a
Okay.
noob, right, I could quit from that because I'm upset and angry, and I don't want to get it back again. And so, from Jagex's point of view, by making it so safe, people don't lose their goods and they're not going to quit. But is it too safe? I like the sense of there's a bit of danger in it, and now you can. Me and you the other day, we're testing out Duo Next. We're not very good at it, but we don't care because we can just go get our stuff back.
Yeah. Although
No
I don't
risk.
know personally. I would much prefer the game to be in a situation where like a lot of people will disagree with me on this one, but I prefer it where if you died, you kept everything. There was no grave. You just respawned in Lumbridge or wherever with everything as it was before you died. Maybe your familiar dies or something. That'd just be an annoyance though. But that would remove a lot of the annoyance of death. Then the only annoyance would be getting back to where you were. And so that should be the punishment, is the fact that you're no longer in the area.
Well, at the
Of
minute, with the way the grave works, you just go and equip it. You might as well. They might as well have, and it would have saved people a lot of items that have been left from the game. Things like my Torva gloves, your Virtus gloves. We both lost them. My Torva gloves went out with 150 mil. Good
yeah,
fight, mate. I lost 150 mil because they,
they
for
go
some
off.
reason, just go on the floor. No idea why. The rest of the shit goes in the grave, and then just one time I died. How many times did you die at Calpat King? 100
Yeah.
plus. One time I was in a rush because we were duo or trioing, and I forgot them, and it's like a good fight.
Yeah, exactly. And it's I don't understand. Like I think the point is like they want to make it like risky, but the risk when killing the Calphite King or like any boss isn't the fact you're like, oh shit, I might die and lose my I don't know my fury. That's not the issue really. It might be for some people, but say you're usually going to be using appropriate gear for stuff, and it's like no one wants to lose their gear. Like say if you're using your most expensive gear, your risk is really high. Do Jagex want someone to lose everything they own? No, because it's probably going to give them a chance to quit. It makes no business sense. If you have someone die, as long as they respawn with their stuff, yeah, they've missed out on a kill and they'll be pissed at themselves, but it'll only motivate them to get better, and they don't lose all their stuff. They can go try again. It also means that you can make things a bit tougher in the game. So if you die, it's not a big deal. You just got to go and give it another go. But a final point that I'd like to make is just that I would quite like to see pretty much all weapons in the game be degradable. Weapons and armor be degradable, and not just degradable to the point that you can repair it. I wish things actually degraded to nothing. Like, imagine if whips, okay, they'd last for a long time. They'd be pretty durable weapons, and maybe you could do things to like enhance the time they lasted for. But all in all, they would degrade to nothing over, I don't know, 100 hours of combat. So there's a hell of a lot of combat, but after 100 hours, they'd go to nothing. We only ever saw this, really, with the Statius and Vesta armor, and that was a bizarre complex at the time. But I don't know, I think that obviously they kept a high value because they were very powerful at the time with their special attack weapons, and they were quite rare. But for things that are common, as long as they degrade, they would still keep a good value. So I don't know. It's a very interesting concept. I'd love to see something new in the game like that. That's like it's a common drop, but they do degrade to nothing. I don't know whether we've got anything like that. I'm sure there is, but it's probably not quite balanced right. But I don't know. I would have. I don't think this could work as an update. I really don't think it could work just because of the state the game's in. But I would have loved to know what would have happened. Like, what would the RS economy be like for these kind of items if that was the case? If, I don't know, say your Staff of Light only had 10,000 spells worth of use, and then it degraded to nothing, or it got damaged and you couldn't use it again, you had to sell it for scrap or something, I don't know. It'd be a very interesting thing to see. But obviously we never will get the chance, unfortunately.
No, probably not.
Regardless, I don't know. Any opinions on that? I'd love to hear them in the comments. But I think we should wrap it up there. We've gone for quite a while. But any questions for next week? Remember, make sure to post them in the comment section below. This week's questions we've kind of touched on before to some extent, stuff like the GE, but they're really interesting topics, and especially now since we can see the effects of things like the EOC, plus the fact that there's maybe slightly fewer players over the past couple of years than there have been in the past. Things like the items and the G and stuff have gone down. It's all very interesting topics. If you've got any more like that, make sure to post them in the comments, and we'll try and answer them for you guys next week.